Hello, everybody. Hi, I'm Paul, and this is
Jeremy. We're from the Game Masters Library, and we're here to talk about the 2024 Player's Handbook.
So we've had a few weeks to play with the handbook as DMs and as players. So what are your initial thoughts, Jeremy?
Overall, I find it good. Like, there's a lot of very positive changes there. We have been running, Paul and I run in a game store, fully local game store. So we run tables that are a broad variety of player competency, from the brand new to the I'm going to mid max in the weird way that you've never thought of before. So we decided when the Player's Handbook was officially released to switch over to using nothing but that.
And we've had a good opportunity with multiple players now at multiple tables to really kind of see what they call like the tutorial period for the Player's Handbook kind of plays like, that kind of levels 1 to 3. And character creation is the first thing that I kind of want to go over, specifically the origins, because I think it really lends really well to making a well-rounded character pretty quickly. Between the backgrounds and the species and the way they separated the two out, I really think it lends to making not a better character, but a more well-rounded character right off the snap. What are your feelings on that?
Yeah, I agree. The nice thing is that you've sort of decoupled the stats from the race, which is good. Tasha's made an attempt to sort of solve that. But it being an optional rule, a lot of people said, no, my elves are dexterous. And that's great. Pick your fantasy, right? But, I think that we, as sort of service game masters, if you will, need to accommodate a lot of different play styles and a lot of different people's sort of what they are looking for. So this was actually a big boon for us, because it wasn't, and by the way, you can go use Tasha's, right? It's here, it's in the rules.
Yep.
This is your species. This is your background. I would say that based on all of the videos we've watched from lots of different sources, especially the official content from Wizards of the Coast, I think the one thing for me that was missing there, and again, not that I need it right now, but was they talked a lot about, during the playtest, customize your own background. And there is nothing in the Player's Handbook about that.
I am fully expecting to see that in the DMG, even though I haven't seen it mentioned in any of the kind of the early access videos that have come out so far. I do think that is needed, because they did a great job of spreading out the ability modifiers amongst the backgrounds. But that also means you have backgrounds that have 8 intelligence plus stats when you really only have a couple of different classes that are really going to use intelligence heavily, and you have only 7 that use strength, when you have much more classes that are going to use strength as a primary stat versus intelligence. So I think they did a great job balancing it evenly amongst all of them, even though with the reduction of not having the artificer in the Player's Handbook, which was the right move by my opinion, I think, they did not need to have that much intelligence as a stat in the backgrounds that they provided for us. I think they needed more constitution, more dexterity, more strength, and then even more charisma, because charisma is only 7 of them contain charisma, when
right.
7 of them contain intelligence, or 8 of them contain intelligence, which is not needed at all.
Yeah. Well,
it's even as far as saving throws go.
Let's look at it this way: I say it's good for the new player, and again, us being able to say, we have to run by a set of rules that are very clear, because we have this broad spectrum of players. Myself, however, I am more for more options all the time, right? So that being said, like I said, not being able to customize or looking at my charisma characters, like you said, okay, I'm a charlatan, I'm a noble, or I am I can't remember the other ones, but it sort of does limit you some to say, well, this doesn't really fit my fantasy of how my character would be, and maybe I'm a smart soldier, right? I was a tactician on the battlefield. So I want the soldier background, but I want to pull in intelligence, basically be a wizard or something, a war wizard as an example. I want to be an abjurer and I should have been a soldier, but limiting myself to the strength and dexterity or whatever the case may be there is again, um, well, it's limiting. So it's something I would like to see expanded out again.
100%. I do like how it kind of set a really good foundation for more backgrounds in future content. This is a really great framework that they can be like, yes, you can make your own, but we're still going to provide you with some really unique things in all of the content that's coming out. Here's a background that is specific to this setting that follows the exact same thing that we've said forward. The 3 ability score increases, tool proficiency, skill proficiency. That's it. And it's going to follow the exact same thing, but they're able to continue to make really cool content with it, which I really, really like. And the fact that they've separated the two allows them to come up with more species and not have to worry as much about the min-maxers kind of were having to worry about the ability score increases that come with the old races. So that allows them to create new ones, and I think really kind of evolve the way that they create things for their content by creating both backgrounds and new and exciting species for us to have at the table.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's been telling for places like the D4 network, right, where Colby all of a sudden is no longer always picking variant human, right? Oh, I'm going to pick up a halfling. I'm going to pick up this because they're not as constrained with what you want to pick if I want to be optimized. Again, not something we come across a lot or worry about a lot at our tables, but still, it's a nice benefit of this.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, the things that they've baked into them, in addition to each of the backgrounds having a tool proficiency, what they've done with the tools as far as having things built into the player's handbook that players can use and see examples of how these tools can be used at the table, I think is fantastic.
Yes, that's very good. One thing I would say about the backgrounds is that I realized that there was no practical application for them in most cases, but I miss the banner features, the ribbon features of the noble can go find lodging with other nobles, or I'm a sage and therefore I can research better. They didn't have any mechanical purpose in the game, but as a DM, I love them because you could use them for quest hooks. You could use them for, oh, by the way, you're coming up on this town, and being a sage, that they have a great library, and it might help you with your, quest upcoming that you're trying to like research how to defeat a green dragon. So I'm a little disappointed that they stepped back away from those, just from again, they didn't do anything in the game, but they were great for the DM to use as a tool and the character to use as a tool as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that also, as a DM at a table, if I'm running something that's going to be multiple weeks rather than just one shots, I'm going to take some of those things into account. Being an experienced DM, you were a mariner. You understand the trade. You can find passage on a boat no matter what. I'm going to add that in for them. And, if someone was creating a character and came to me and said, hey, instead of this skill proficiency, what if I have like this really cool library card that every time I go into a town, it's accepted and I can get into the library? Sure. Yeah, 100%. You want to not have a +2 to perception and be able to go to the library? Yep, you can do that.
Go for it. Right. Yeah, again, I think that's great, and the experienced DM can pick that up, and hopefully, by listening to us, the new DMs can as well. But not having it in the book, just again, it's one of those things where it's like, well, I don't I don't feel comfortable making those judgments as a brand new DM. Um, it just takes a little something away that I appreciated, I guess,
Yeah.
from my perspective. So.
And, as far as like my comments on species, like they're great. They're fine. I all of the little additions that they get as part of their species, I think are all fantastic. I'm excited to see as they start kind of enveloping like the larger universe to see kind of what they do with some of them and what they add in additional.
Yeah.
The next part of this is feats. So we have all of the origin feats now, which you get to pick or are as part of your background. All of them are represented in the background, so there's not anything that you can't get or you need to be a human in order to get. So every background represents all of the origin feats. And to start it off, I love them. I have right now a musician or an entertainer at my table. I think those are the feat and the background. Every time they finish a little short rest, handing out inspiration, which I've been trying to do more as a DM. Because it is now such a kind of an integral part of the game, there are things that give it out intrinsically. Being a human, you get it after a long rest, and then as part of this feat, you can hand it out to other players, which I think is fantastic. Beyond just bardic inspiration, you can now pass out, hey, I want advantage on this roll, which I think I'm really enjoying at the table. Kind of that I use small little gold tokens to kind of keep track of it so that a player can't have more than one. And they've been having a lot of fun with it, tossing the coins back and forth and grabbing that advantage when it really matters. I have a rogue at the table, and the amount of times like he's been able to pop off when there's not somebody within 5 feet of an enemy and still get that sneak attack has really been awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I always enjoyed the game where I played in that you got a feat starting off. Like, okay, you could be a variant human and you're fine. But if you want to take a background that does not have one, especially once all of the sort of setting specific feat or backgrounds came out. So, Mage of High Sorcery is an example. A lot of DMs I saw were saying, oh, well, you can go ahead and pick a feat, and I would like you to, your free feat can be tough or skilled, or basically what they've pulled into the new player's handbook, which I think is great. It helps to make the characters more unique. Again, with the hopes that in the future they'll come out with a nice little rule set for saying, I want to customize my background, and therefore, instead of the soldier being tough, I want to take, or whichever one it is.
Because that part of it is a little limiting. If you're looking for a specific feat and a specific primary stat, you don't have a lot of options. Yep. Like if you were like specifically looking to play something that's, even you can't find someone who has the entertainer feat as well as strength.
Right.
Which is unless you play a human. So then we're circling back to what you said before about always picking human. And I think once that opens up, it's like John Bonham was not a charismatic fellow. He was a strong fellow,
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
that expands,
overall though, I think it's a great addition. Again, for how many people homebrewed that rule in or said, yeah, we're going to use feats in the first place. I'm sure that there is a negative impact there as well for the people who use no feats in their games, right? And so I guess we'll see how
I don't know
that
how
plays
you
out.
would anymore. I don't really think this is a optional.
No, I don't think so either. I think at this point it would probably be, I'm going to stick with the 2014 rules, no feats. And let's be
Yeah.
clear, that makes it easier on the game master for sure. If you set a bar of like no feats, no extra things, that's good for you, right? Run your table the way you want to run your table.
Yeah.
So
I also think you might be looking for a different game.
yeah, true. Fair enough.
Because especially with the talks that we've had regarding CR in general, and the fact that even in their official videos that they're saying you are no longer using CR as your encounter building mechanism, you are using experience.
Right.
So you are given a pool of experience, and this is the experience that you can use to create a hard encounter.
Right.
We're not using CR anymore, even though it's still on there. It might have use cases, etc., but we're using experience.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and how that all melts together. A lot of my opinions right now are based on what we are doing at the table, right? And we don't make incredibly challenging encounters or anything like that. And I've definitely seen that the 2024 characters are a little bit more beefy. They're a little bit more powerful. They're a little bit more fun to play. So I think that's good, but I'm going to hold a lot of judgment until one, I've built those encounters based on the experience, tried that out, and two, I have a monster manual. Right,
Correct.
that's the other piece there that is going to I'll reserve my final judgment for that. Like many of us out there, just to see like what did you do to the goblin to make it that experience point pool better or
Yeah.
worse or whatever the case may be. I know they've talked a lot about how they're going to adjust that, but anyway.
I recently did, and you played in it, one of my rundowns, which is where I take a bunch of creatures that are the exact same CR level, and I pit them against the players. And it's usually like, I think it was 6 total encounters or 5 total encounters. You get a short rest in between to kind of fit into that adventuring day, which has gone away. But the times that I've done it before with the 2014, plus Tasha's plus everything, versus just the 2024, the players with just the 2024 book handled it significantly better.
Yeah, for sure.
Significantly better. It felt like they still had some stuff left at the end of the day versus being completely depleted. It felt like they were able to handle just the generic encounters a lot easier. And then when I threw, what was it, the Onkeg kind of boss monster from MCDM, you guys were able to handle it no problem.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
It was definitely good. I think the great thing there too, just to kind of segue back, is the marshals' abilities that they have picked up through weapon masteries, right?
Yeah.
The fact that the martial characters at the table can continue to trip, sap, do all of these things to the monsters over and over and over again has really changed the dynamic of the table, I think. If they remember to use it. That being said, I want to jump back real quick. I know I have not been using as much inspiration at my table. I need to because it's there as a mechanism. But just to jump on one topic of yours, and so both Paul and I ran the different tiers of the beta for Daggerheart. And one of the great things about that was all of the physical pieces that you were manipulating. So I put my action token in, I pull one out, I have my hope and fear tokens and all of that kind of stuff. So the players having something to throw back and forth, using the little gold tokens for inspiration as an example, like that's fun. Another thing is just anything that we usually for our pre-made characters go ahead and print out spell cards, right? So again, they can quickly flip through the deck instead of trying to go through the book to the right spot. Like, oh, I've got my description, I've got it in front of me. Yeah, exactly. And it's nice to have those sort of physical things. The players seem to enjoy them. We ran a campaign prior to the 2024. It was kind of our last, I guess, springtime campaign, and we used little tokens for the currency in our system. And again, I think people really enjoyed that.
Currency system was great. What they could buy,
not so good. We'll cover that some other time.
Yeah, that is going to be a whole separate video on why you don't give your players access to every magic item in existence.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think that, from my perspective, just to keep plugging here, the classes, all good from the balance perspective. I think I share the opinions of many folks that the thing that's weird, and again, as a DM you can handle this, but as a new DM I think you could end up struggling with this, is the warlock, the cleric.
Yeah.
I don't get my sort of focus until level 3 now, which is a little weird. Who did I make my pact with to get these powers? Well,
and it also adds,
it's level 3, it was a fiend, ooh, surprise, versus making that choice at the beginning.
It makes it a little bit more difficult, because either you need to have something that the player is not aware about, or is just repressing, which adds the whole, let's have some therapy examples to the table.
Yeah.
Or you have to build it into your story. Whatever this experience is that they're going to have that is going to cause them to pick what their subclass is, you have to build that into your story. So either they have a plan from level 1, which you can work in, or the good part is, and I will say that this was actually probably one of my favorite things that they just said in the player's handbook. So if you have experienced players, just start at level 3.
Yep.
Flat out. You start with a subclass, that's where your story starts. 1 and 2 is the tutorial. 3 is where you start with experienced players, which I think is absolutely
correct.
Perfect.
I think from the converse perspective, though, again, Paul and I run, one shots all the time. We run maybe small mini campaigns. We may have new players, and so them seeing the appeal of the cleric, but then how do we manage that? And for us, we don't do this is not a long-term campaign. This is not the same necessarily group of people even at our table. So having a session 0, while a very critical thing, if you were going to do one of those things, we don't do that, because that would be, take up, we have drop-ins, we have people that show up from, this week, but not next week, things like that. So, from this perspective, it's hard for the new player to, sort of look at that and say, oh, I've got a plan, right?
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm looking in this, but I wanted to play the cleric because I want to wear armor and I want to cast holy spells, right? And that's what I want. So, again, but like you said, with the experienced players starting at level 3 makes sense. I've got my subclass. I can start my story now.
And I don't think
all good.
Level 3 is so far out there. I would never start a player at 17th level, but I would start a player at 3rd level. There's not, if you think about it, spellcasters are going to be a little rough. But if you think about your marshals, you get really cool stuff. If you're thinking barbarian, you got reckless attack, you got rage, but it's not so much that I don't think a new player would feel overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. To use the Daggerheart reference, they would be sitting there with a couple cards in front of them.
Yep.
I don't think it would be anything that would be push them outside the realm of being able to have fun at the table or feel overwhelmed. And I think that's, person specific, obviously, and capability specific, but I would not feel bad about pulling someone in at level 3 for their first game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's the good thing too is that there's lots of good tools out there for helping the player out. that you can go and find, like, explaining the character sheet, explaining how to do things. So I think that, again, like you said, third level is not a bad place to start. We will start a campaign up at our game store in winter. So come around to January,
Yep.
and we will probably start at third level, just for that reason.
100%. I think it's a good. I mean, it's not that I don't love level 1 and 2, but it's so swingy, and it's like we were talking about the difference between like fighting a goblin at first level and fighting a dragon at 20th level. Like a goblin can one-shot you.
Yes.
And if you don't have the right party comp or the right people at the table, like that could mean like week 1 campaign character death, which definitely does feel bad. Like if I'm going to kill you, I want to make sure you feel like I killed you. Like it wasn't an accident.
Yeah, exactly. I think overall, a lot of the changes, and people have discussed these ad nauseum, so we're not going to go into them here. A lot of the changes were positive to a lot of the subclasses. Just to name a couple, the wizard really came out ahead, I think, and they took an underperforming subclass illusion and made it phenomenal, right?
If I ever get to play in a campaign, it is going to
illusion
be
wizard.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like I said, overall it's good. I think there's, the monk is just wonderful at this point. Lots of good stuff there. I would suggest go check out the folks' videos, Tree at Monk, Colby from D4 Network, that deep dive into this stuff and talk about it exhaustively. And go see if you have some idea of like, I want to play this and I want to kind of dig into it, right?
I love my barbarians, and was Path of the World Tree barbarian so cool. All of the barbarians, Zealot, all of it. I am interested in re-rolling one of my original characters to see what he would look like as a Path of the World Tree barbarian, and the damage and the utility that they have at higher levels now, with the ability to do things on top of their weapon masteries. Absolutely fantastic. So cool.
It's great.
And I'm running a short campaign now at the game store, and I have a College of Dance Bard, which is super fun. And really exciting.
I think, like I said, there's a lot of good things there. It makes me want more now, right? I realize those will come out in other books later. I'm excited to see the rest of the things redone. Obviously, I think the big takeaway is that Tasha's was the bar, right? Because there were several subclasses that they just brought in minor tweaks. Here's the bar we want to get to now for everything else.
Well, there's a reason Tasha's was the best-selling publication before the 2024 Player's Handbook, is because people wanted more, flat out.
Yes. So that's the one thing we haven't seen any announcements about yet, and I'm waiting with bated breath for just more.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that, I mean, we'll discuss it further in another video, but also the splitting between players and DM books. I'm excited to see if they chock that book full of player options, because they don't need to put all the DM stuff in it. Or are they going to do a half-size book? Like, whatever that means for us, I'm excited for, because that means the possibility of more player options, more exciting things in the land of the Forgotten Realms, which is very cool.
Yes, very cool.
So the last thing, starting equipment in general, which, again, like we talked about with tools, it's got some cool additional things that you're able to kind of see right off the snap. Like right here, we have caltrops. As a utilize action, you can spread caltrops from the bag to cover a 5-foot square area and within 5 feet of yourself. It gives you how to use these items.
Yes.
which I think is
huge.
correct. And it specifies like what a candle does. For 1 hour, a lit candle sheds bright light in a 5-foot radius and dim light for an additional 5 feet. So there's no question. It's like, oh, I lit a candle, I can see this whole 100-foot cave in every direction.
Right.
No.
Right. Yeah, I think that was a huge, often unspoken about benefit of this is the equipment list and the improvements, weapon masteries aside, which are all great. But the equipment list where they spelled out a lot of things, which are great. It's great for both sides. You've got a new player coming in and they said, oh, I can take, I get caltrops in my kit. What do I do with that? Well, I can go look, right? I can go look and see exactly what I can do with these things or start my imagination here, right? It gives me a great baseline of, oh, well, maybe I could do this. Let me talk to my DM about it. But it's awesome that they took that. The kits all the way around are phenomenal because, again, it says, here's what you can do with this kit. And even here's some DCs in there.
Yeah,
I think that
is the climber's kit goes in specifically what you can do is utilize action chains. It says how you can restrain somebody, what the DCs are to either slip out of the chains or break the chains. It gives you both options with 2 separate DCs. And it's a 18 dex or a 20 strength. So it is taking into account kind of that it's a little bit stronger than rope, if you will, which I think is fantastic. The other thing that kind of snuck in here, let me find my tab. This one is the starting magic items, which they kind of slid in here. Level 2 through 4, 1 common magic item. Going up for level 17 to 20. If you're starting at 17 to 20, you get 2 common, 4 uncommon, 3 rare, and 1 very rare magic item, which I think is kind of stingy.
Yeah. So, we'll tell you that, and some of this stuff will come out later, but what we did was take sort of the various Adventurer League modules, right? And said, okay, we're going to pull out the magic items and just throw them in a spreadsheet, right? Okay. And then abstract that into our own sort of, here's what you get at these various levels. Now, Adventures League has its own rules around how many things you can have, right? We didn't necessarily bring that in, but just to kind of make our own table of like, okay, we're going to start a character at level 10 for this one shot, so you can pick X, Y, and Z. So this table, again, probably a little stingy, but is nice as a starting point for everybody, right? Okay, I want to go run shot at my local game store. Great. So I know that these characters should have these things on them, or this is a good starting point. And then as you mature as a DM and kind of get that experience under your belt, you can say, yeah, this is stingy and I want, they should have more.
I 100% believe that this is not a one-shot table. This is a campaign table. I'm starting whatever little campaign I'm running at level 17. This is where they're going to start. And it's assuming that they're going to get more loot fairly quickly. That is like character specific. Because starting at level 10 with 1 common and 1 uncommon magic item, that's interesting. Like at level 10, only having an uncommon magic item, which I think a +1 weapon would fall into, or a +1 spell focus. Like, you get that and some dusted disappearance and you're off to the races.
Right. Yeah. And it, again, what is your context and where are you going? Right. For a one shot, that may be perfect. Right. It's fine. They've got something to deal with there. But thinking about starting a campaign, like if I would have looked at my characters all throughout their leveling career up to this point, would they have, they would have had a lot more. We can talk about our game on Thursday night where we have this bag of holding full of magic items that occasionally get sold, occasionally get given to somebody, but there's a big pool of magic items that for whatever reason, somebody was using before, they aren't using now, but it gives them options, or maybe one that comes up and they're like, oh, wait a minute, this is going to come into play now because I want this, however that comes up, So
we sold,
again, thinking about getting those things is,
we sold basically the 17 to 20 list every month and a half, every 2 months. It's basically we sell 2 common, 4 uncommon, 3 rare, and 1 very rare magic item.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's one of those things. It's also, we've been adventuring a long time. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you're thinking, obviously, 2 common, 4 uncommon, 3 rare, and 1 very rare are going to be the ones that you are going to use if you are selecting them.
Correct.
Not necessarily what you have gotten. That is what the 20,000 gold pieces plus the 1d10 times 250 gold pieces is kind of taking into account, that you have gotten weird ass magic items and sold them to Bob the merchant down the street, and that is how you've kind of inherited this gold.
Right. I think the limitation there that I would say is, let's call it a little annoying, if you will, is just think about your bag right now, and like maybe the amount, or even on my character, the amount of even common magic items that you're keeping around for a rainy day, right? Hey, I've got a coin of delving, as an example, right? I may need this once, but man, it's going to feel cool when I pull it out of my pack. And I may not take that looking at this list. Oh, I'm going to start at level 10. Well, I'm going to take this, and this, because I think it'll be more useful more often than me having that thing around. Or, hey, you know what? I've got an extra +1 dagger. I'm going to try to jimmy this magical door with it so it doesn't break. If it does, it does. Or I'm going to feed it to the magic eater, or give it away to a dragon who's going to let me through his territory, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So,
or wait till your DM has something really juicy that you don't have enough gold for, and then just sell everything you own.
Correct.
It happens.
Depending on your world and how you want to handle that. I think it'll be interesting too to see, once we get our hands on the DM's guide, like how they, are there rules in there? Is there a price table, right? I don't know how often I go to an external website at this point to look for prices that seem reasonable, versus, they have the ranges in there, but, that range is pretty standard for uncommon magic items.
Yeah.
And some of them are better than others. And so, you kind of got to take that into account. And again, it's something currently I'm going to other websites for to help me out with as 100%. A DM. But regardless, we'll see how all of that plays out as well. Maybe we'll try that with our one-shots moving forward after we get out of level 3 is where we are right now. So,
so spells.
I want to give one last shout out. My truly favorite feature. I wish it was better from a slice and dice perspective, but the rules glossary.
Oh,
everybody's talking about it.
Yes.
It's wonderful. It's a one-stop place to go look something up. I have taken and made cards for, here's all the grappling rules, no matter what they are. It's coming from a monk, coming from that rules glossary. Let's put it all in one card. So you're playing a monk, I'm going to hand this to you. You want to be a grappler fighter, I'm going to hand this card to you. And here's all those rules contained in one spot. Same thing for stealth rules. Like they're, again, I can look through the glossary at all the things and jump between them. And obviously something like D&D Beyond helps because I've got links that I can click to go to the next thing or hover over to see it. Yeah. But if you're working with the book, then, jumping back and forth is, fine. But
and it's got some gems in here that I think really kind of transcend what a simple rule glossary would be, like breaking objects. What's the AC of these different materials? Mm-hmm. And then, object hit points with examples. Like a large thing would be like a cart or a dining table. A fragile one would have 5 hit points. A resilient one would have 27 hit points. Like, that's big. Like, especially for new DMs, like, who read the player's handbook or are as a player and kind of go through the rules glossary a couple of times, that is sets standards that they can use all the time. I use those things all the time of like, I want to, because players want to do stupid shit. I want to
all the time.
I want to break this. I want to use this. I want to, kind of bar this door. Like, all right, cool. What do you put in front of it? A table. Cool. Is it a resilient table? Guess how many hit points that has? 27.
Yeah, exactly. And really the power of it is it's all in one place, right?
Yep.
A lot of these rules were, some are in the DMG, some are in the player's handbook. They might be in this section, that section, this section. Having a one-stop shop for it is just, it's gold.
Yeah.
You can't say enough about that in there. So.
All right. So next up, spells. So the first thing that I want to talk about with the spells is the healing spells. Basically, the lower level healing spells doing basically double the dice healing as before. I love this change. I think healing was definitely in not a good spot where commonly doing damage is going to be a better option than actually doing any kind of healing beyond, here's a healing word, get back up, do your round of combat, and then I'll do it again when I come back, when you get knocked down again. I don't know if it solved the problem, but I definitely believe it got better.
Yeah, I think so too. And realistically, look at the scaling, right? So not only do I have more dice with a level 1 cast of something, it scales better now as well, where if I need to get that fighter up and he's got to take another hit after I get him up, right? I can upcast it and make that choice, and it might be a smart tactical choice to do that at this point versus nope, just spend the first level spell slot and get him back up, and then I will do the same thing again, like you said. So
I think
that was a good improvement overall. And to be fair, that is our Thursday night table where we would consider those things. For our standard players in the game store, like, great. It just makes things better, right?
Yeah.
Overall,
it makes it easier for me.
Yeah. Overall, it is better. You don't have to worry as much about it. It's better resource spent, if you will. Now, overall, I think the spells have some good improvements. Obviously, there's new ones, which is fabulous. But there are also some very broken combos out there nowadays.
2
or 3 or 4, right? Whatever the case may be. But
there's more found every day. It's like an adventure.
Yes, that's right. That's right. The optimizers out there are looking at this like, oh, look, here's a new piece of candy for me. And again, we probably won't run across things like that as much. I just want to give a shout out to the new Witch Bolt. Man,
talk about a glow up.
The concept of the spell is just fabulous, right? Emperor Palpatine launching his lightning across the way and grabbing hold of, hitting somebody and him just holding it, right? Mm-hmm. But the spell was just not that great. Like, from a visual perspective and like a role player's perspective, it was wonderful. It's so much better now.
Oh, yeah.
I've built a one-shot character around using that. And again, just because it's gotten that, like you said, gotten a good glow up.
And the fact that you can continue to do the damage, even if the initial bolt misses.
Yeah.
You're not wasting a spell slot. Is so... like, that's clutch. And I will piggyback on that. My new favorite, Sorcerer's Burst.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. So thematic. Yep. Seeing it done at the table, every time it just feels like an exciting thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, I like the mechanism that it can blow up, right? Okay, I got the 8. Yay, I get another dice, and it's not a critical, or when it is a critical, woo, even better. But yeah, it's definitely a great thing. I think the improvements to a lot of the cantrips are marvelous, and I think just like everybody out there, wish you would have gone just a little bit farther on stuff. To kind of cover more of those scenarios that didn't get fixed.
Well, I think a lot. Shout out to Wizards of the Coast for not including every DM's favorite spell, the spell that shall not be named.
Exactly. It'll come, I'm sure, but
that feels like a choice.
Exactly.
I think they wanted a little bit more time to rework that spell. But the fact that so many spells, not only from the player's handbook, but that from Tasha's Xanathar's that made it into this book really shows kind of the evolution of spells, which is very cool. Like, they're taking a look at everything. There's nothing that is not, off the table here, like the changes to spiritual weapon, even though, there's definitely a lot of feelings. It's the right choice.
Yep.
From someone who is playing a cleric, it is the right choice because it is very much like, well, it's round 1, time to do my, class feature and bring out my spiritual weapon. Correct. No matter what is happening. Like, the only time is if one of the characters gets murked, like round 1. Like, maybe I'll use a healing word. But sometimes if one of the other characters can get him up, the spiritual weapon's still coming out. Like, it should not be an auto. This is something that became like the Warlock's Eldritch Blast. Clerics have their spiritual weapon, Warlocks do Eldritch Blast, which it never should have been, I don't believe.
Correct.
It's not something that's, where it is in the war domain now as a channel divinity, I believe is where it should be. It feels correct there.
Correct. And, obviously you can argue all day long about the stuff, and I liked my old toy, but the new toy is also good, right? So I like the general direction of how they sort of solidified mechanics and stuff like that. But at the same time, left them alone, right? Aid being a truly unique spell, right? And it's hard and it's tough for new game masters, but in the playtest, they were talking about switching that over to just be temporary hit points.
Yeah.
Instead of the increase your hit points and heal that much. I'm glad they left it. Again, because while I appreciate sort of harmonizing your rule set, I also want that unique flavor for things as well. So,
yeah, and it's one of those things that I hope they kind of increase going forward. Those unique things, the aids, kind of increasing hit points rather than giving temporary hit points. Yep. I want to see more things that do unique things when it comes to spells.
Correct. And more things like aid, in the sense that, like, the move, how they change things like jump, as an example. Yeah. The jump spell got a huge boost, and it's not as fiddly as it was and situational. But it's a buff that I would cast on myself. Don't have to concentrate. Great. And I have that buff for a while. Long Strider, aid, I'm going to spend this spell slot at the beginning of the day.
Yeah.
And it means I'm down 1, but at the same time, I start off the day better.
Yeah. I mean, I cast aid twice a day, every day in my Thursday night game. Because at level 4, having 20 additional hit points for 3 people is just good.
Yes, it is.
Especially when your DM throws 37 CR worth of stuff at level 13 characters. No, I love where spells are going. 100%.
Yeah.
I like the changes that they made. I like that they're really looking at concentration versus non-concentration. I think that's good. And I think, even like the small stuff that the changes they've made to things like True Strike and stuff like that, they're good. Whether they get play, I think remains to be seen as kind of people develop the builds around the classes and subclasses that this book has given them. And I think just like anything else, anybody who had a level 20 wizard had some conversations regarding Wish and Simulacrum. There are going to be conversations had regarding things like conjure minor elementals and the way polymorph is supposed to work.
Correct.
And I don't think that's bad in any way. I think it's healthy to have those conversations as a DM and as a player to make sure that you're not ruining the fun for either yourself, the DM, or the other players at the table, because that can be definitely a feels bad moment, of I do 12 damage, I do 12 damage, I do 12 damage, I do 74 damage.
Right. And again, this is a huge consideration for us, and we'll get into this in later videos because we, again, are kind of coming from the perspective of running at your fully local game store, running one-shots, having drop-ins. This is not your week-to-week table campaign with the same folks that you've been doing it every week. So, for us, that well, it'll be a wait and see, but it's also might be one of those things that we say, this is not allowed, right? Just because, again, I have this wonderful young woman sitting next to me that this is her first time she's playing D&D, and she,
created it,
learning the rules and ready to have fun and wants to be able to I rage and I go up and whack that thing, right? Versus your caster coming in and being like, well, too bad that thing's gone because I beat you in initiative. So,
No, I 100%. And I really want to see conjure minor elementals not on paper. I want to see it in practice, because the fact that it's concentration, man. I mean, a lot of the builds that are using it are combinations of bards and druids and things that don't necessarily have the best con save sometimes.
Right.
So all of a sudden a slight breeze comes along and they get one round of conjure minor elementals at 9th level. I mean, if you're burning a 9th level spell and you're doing 200 something damage with it, cool. But again, we just got away from Paladin Smites. It's not the worst thing in the world to get one cool round. If they have a way to maintain concentration, though, and they're able to get multiple rounds off, but they're kind of, I don't want to say a one-trick pony, but a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
That's
fair
what
enough.
they're building
I think
for.
It sounds like you're going to be running a high-level one-shot for me soon, so we can try that out and have an informed opinion.
I support this decision.
Yeah, I like it too. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, again, overall, I think a lot of good improvements in the spells, and yeah, there's lots of other folks taking the deep dive into those. So go jump in.
And take a look out there, guys. There is some great spreadsheets with just the changes to the spells on there that really kind of boil it down. Search out these kind of documents. Makes kind of versus reading every single spell and comparing it to 2014 a lot easier, especially if you have attention issues like I do.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So anything else that you wanted to cover as far as the 2024 Player's Handbook?
One last minor thing.
Sure.
The art is phenomenal.
Oh, God, yeah. Everybody said it, but it should not be underestimated.
It should not. The art in the book is wonderful. It's almost worth getting the Player's Handbook just for the art. Yeah. Because a lot of this information, as other people have pointed out, is and will be freely available. But look at the book, look at the pictures. Yeah, makes it wonderful. Spawns those imagination moments as well. So
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I think we wanted to cover today. Thanks for watching.
Wait.
Like and subscribe.
Let's sum it up.
Okay.
As if you're trying to send it. So you have,
okay.
What is it, 23 words or less? 25 words or less? Sum up the 2024 Player's Handbook in 25 words or less. I will go first.
Words less.
I will go first. Good job. Love the changes. Backgrounds. Species. Classes. All great. Look forward to changes you're going to make in the future. Stop making game-breaking spells.
Okay. I'm going to go with overall a great change. If you like the book, go buy it. If you can't, that's okay. It'll be free soon.
I like that.
Leave it at that.
100%. The free rolls are already available on D&D Beyond.
Correct.
So as long as you have an account, they're available there, and then they will be put into Creative Commons, I believe, once the Monster Manual comes out in February.
That is correct. The 5, I think it's 5.2 of the SRD will be out,
yep.
And Creative Commons will be out then when they have all of the pieces in place, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So now we can do our outro that we've done my fun exercise of summing up like you're doing this Sunday.
Exactly.
So
thank you, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Like and subscribe. We have more great content coming. We have learned a lot playing games and running games in our local game stores, and we want to share this information with you and help you both play and run games on your own. And yeah,
absolutely.
We'll see you next time.
And if you're looking for those games, check out your fully local game store. They've got people like us sitting there just waiting for you.
100%. Discords are an amazing thing.
Yep.
See you next time.
Take care, everyone.